radio went silent at exactly 0347 hours, and Lieutenant Marcus Chen knew they were alone. 3 miles deep into the Korengal Valley, surrounded by mountains that had swallowed better men than him, his 6-man reconnaissance team had just lost their only connection to the outside world. No extraction, no air support, no backup, just the darkness, the cold, and whatever was hunting them through these ancient peaks. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what Chen had discovered in his encrypted mission folder 30 minutes earlier, the real reason they'd been sent into this valley, the truth that changed everything. His hand trembled slightly as he closed the folder, looking at the faces of his team, men who trusted him completely, men who believed they were here to locate a weapons cache, men who had no idea they were actually bait. If you're enjoying this story so far, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. This channel brings you the most intense military stories every week, and your support keeps these missions alive. The mission had seemed straightforward during the briefing. Intelligence suggested a Taliban commander named Khalid Massoud had established a supply depot somewhere in the Korengal. Chen's team would infiltrate, gather coordinates, and call in an airstrike. Simple reconnaissance, low risk, standard operation. Except nothing about this mission was standard. Chen's team was deliberate in composition. Staff Sergeant David Torres, a combat medic who'd saved more lives than he'd taken. Corporal James Wright, a sniper with 73 confirmed kills and a wife expecting their first child. Specialist Ryan Foster, the communications expert whose radio had just gone mysteriously dead. Private First Class Andre Williams, barely 22, on his second deployment. Sergeant Marcus Kim, demolition specialist with a dark sense of humor that kept everyone sane. And Private Lucas Grant, the rookie who still flinched at every distant sound they'd inserted via helicopter 48 hours earlier, hiking through terrain that had broken armies for centuries. The mountains here didn't care about technology or training. They respected only endurance and will. The first sign something was wrong came at the 12-hour mark. Torres spotted movement on a ridge, not Taliban but American. Another team, moving parallel to their position, completely off the operational map. Lieutenant, we're not alone out here, Torres had whispered, his scope tracking the distant figures. That's a special activities team. CIA, probably. Why would they be running an operation in our sector without coordination? Chen had no answer. He'd radioed back to base, requesting clarification. The response had been immediate and strange. Maintain mission parameters. Disregard external units. Communications discipline, essential. That should have been his first clue. The second came when they reached the supposed weapons cache location. The coordinates were perfect, the intelligence specific, but the site was empty, not recently evacuated, never occupied. The disturbed earth was staged, the debris deliberately placed. Someone wanted them at this exact location. That's when Chen had opened the encrypted folder he'd been instructed not to access until reaching the objective. The folder that required his biometric signature and command authorization code. The folder that contained the actual mission parameters. What he read made his blood run cold. Operation Checkmate. His team wasn't here to find Khalid Massoud. They were here to force him out of hiding. Chen's men were the visible target, the bait that would draw the Taliban commander into engaging. The real strike team, that CIA unit Torres had spotted, would move in during the engagement and neutralize Massoud while he was distracted. The mission planners had run the projections. Acceptable losses, 3 to 4 men. Probability of success, 87%. Chen's team had been specifically selected, not for their skills, but for their expendability. Torres was being investigated for alleged rules of engagement violations. Wright had filed complaints about command decisions. Foster had refused to falsify communications reports. Williams, Kim, and Grant were simply unlucky, assigned to fill out the roster. They were ghosts already, on paper at least. Men the system wouldn't miss. Chen felt rage building in his chest, but he forced it down. Emotion was a luxury he couldn't afford. His men were depending on him, even if they didn't know the truth yet. He had maybe 3 hours before dawn, Before the trap was supposed to spring, he could follow orders, let the mission proceed as planned. Some of his men might survive. The Taliban commander would be eliminated. Mission success by the metrics that mattered to the people giving orders from comfortable rooms thousands of miles away. Or he could do something else entirely. Listen up, Chen said quietly, gathering his team in a tight circle. We have a problem. He told them everything. Watch their faces cycle through disbelief, anger, and finally, a cold calculation. These were professionals. They'd all understood the risks when they signed up, but betrayal from their own command was something different, something that violated the fundamental contract between those who gave orders and those who executed them. So what do we do, sir? Williams asked, his young face hard in the moonlight. We're 3 miles from the nearest friendly position. Our radio is conveniently dead, and somewhere out there is a Taliban commander with about 40 fighters, plus a CIA team that's probably been told we're acceptable collateral damage. We complete the mission, Chen said, just not the way they planned. Torres raised an eyebrow. Explain. Khalid Massoud is a legitimate target. The intelligence about his location is probably accurate, but we're not going to be bait. We're going to do what we were trained to do. Execute a direct action mission that brings him down without getting ourselves killed in the process. The CIA team will still be out there, Wright observed. They might not appreciate us going off script. Then they can file a complaint with whoever sent us on a suicide mission. Chen replied, I'm not sacrificing any of you because someone decided we were acceptable losses. We're getting Massoud, and we're all walking out of this valley alive. Kim actually smiled. Now that's what I signed up for. What's the plan? Chen spread out his tactical map, marking positions with quick, precise movements. Massoud's compound is 2 clicks northeast. Small valley, single access road, high ground on 3 sides. Intelligence says he's meeting with his sub-commanders at dawn to plan an attack on the forward operating base at Blessing. That's why timing was so critical for the original plan. How do 6 men take down a fortified position with 40 hostiles? Foster asked. We don't, Chen said. We make them come to us. Kim, you're about to earn your paycheck. How much explosive can you rig with what we're carrying? The demolitions expert did quick calculations, enough to bring down a mountainside. If I place it right, you thinking what I think you're thinking. The access road runs through a narrow gorge, about half a click from the compound. We collapse both ends, trap them in the valley, then we pick off anyone who tries to climb out. It's not elegant, but it's effective. What about the CIA team? Torres asked. Chen's expression hardened. If they want Massoud, they can coordinate with us. Otherwise, they stay out of our way. I'm done being a pawn in someone else's game. They moved through the darkness with renewed purpose. These weren't men following orders anymore. They were professionals taking control of an impossible situation, united by betrayal and determination. Kim worked his magic on the gorge, placing charges with the precision of a surgeon. The rock face was unstable already, scarred by decades of war. It wouldn't take much to bring it down, just the right pressure in the right places. Meanwhile, Wright positioned himself on the high ground, his rifle becoming an extension of his body. From his perch, he could cover the entire valley. 73 confirmed kills were about to become significantly more. Foster managed to jury-rig their dead radio, discovering what Chen had suspected. A remote kill switch activated from command. Someone hadn't wanted them calling for help or questioning their orders. He bypassed it, restoring limited communications, not enough to reach friendly forces, but enough to monitor enemy frequencies. That's when they heard it. Taliban communications, encrypted but following predictable patterns. Massoud was indeed planning to move at dawn, but not to his compound. He was coming to them. The Taliban had their own intelligence, their own sources. They knew exactly where Chen's team was supposed to be. The trap within the trap was about to spring. They're moving early, Foster reported, his face pale. 50, maybe 60 fighters, converging on our original position from 3 directions. ETA 20 minutes. Williams swore softly. If we'd followed the plan, we'd be surrounded right now. Yeah, Chen said grimly. That was the point. Maximum engagement, to draw out Masood, acceptable losses. So what now? Grant asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Chen smiled, but there was no humor in it. Now we give them what they came for, just not the way anyone expected. He keyed his radio to the frequency he knew the CIA team was monitoring. Shadow 6, this is Ghost 1. I know you're listening. I know the real mission parameters. I know what we were supposed to be. But plans have changed. Masood is moving early with his full force. You want him, he's yours. But my men are coming home alive. Stay out of our way, and we'll deliver your target. Interfere, and this whole operation goes to hell. Your choice. Chen out. Silence for a moment. Then a different voice, calm and professional. Ghost 1, Shadow 6 actual. Understood. We'll take Masood alive if possible. But we're not the enemy here. Someone higher up the chain made this call. We're just trying to complete our mission. Then let's complete it, Chen replied. Together. The next hour unfolded with violent precision. The Taliban force moved into the kill zone exactly as predicted. Chen's team let them advance, let them feel confident. Then Kim triggered his charges. The gorge collapsed with a sound like the earth breaking. Tons of rock thundered down, sealing both ends of the valley. 50 Taliban fighters suddenly found themselves trapped in a box canyon with nowhere to run. Wright's rifle spoke from the high ground, each shot carefully placed, not to kill necessarily, but to create chaos, to drive the enemy into predictable patterns. Torres and Williams covered the flanks, making sure nobody escaped through the impossible terrain. And in the confusion, the CIA team moved like ghosts through the compound itself. Masood had stayed behind with a small security element, convinced his fighters would secure an easy victory. By the time he realized the trap, it was too late. Shadow 6 to Ghost 1, package secured. 11 hostiles neutralized. 0 friendly casualties. Moving to extraction point Alpha. Ghost 1 copies. Stay safe out there. As dawn broke over the Corendal Valley, Chen's team began their withdrawal. They'd accomplished the mission, brought down a major Taliban commander, and survived what was supposed to be a suicide operation. But the victory felt hollow. They'd proven something that night, that 6 good men, betrayed by their own command, could still execute an impossible mission through skill and brotherhood. But they'd also learned a harder lesson, that sometimes the greatest enemy wasn't the one shooting at you from across the valley. The helicopter extraction came at 0900 hours. Different pilots than the insertion. Different chain of command. The CIA had arranged it, pulling strings that Chen's own unit apparently couldn't or wouldn't. As they lifted off, Chen looked down at the valley that had almost become their graveyard. He thought about the decision he'd made, the orders he'd disobeyed, the consequences that would surely follow. But when he looked at his team, all 6 men alive, exhausted but intact, he knew he'd made the right choice. The debriefing lasted 3 days. Chen was separated from his team, questioned by officers whose names he never learned and whose faces revealed nothing. He told the truth, all of it, knowing it would probably end his career. On the 4th day, a colonel he'd never met entered the interrogation room. The man sat down, studied Chen for a long moment, then slid a folder across the table. Operation Checkmate, the colonel said quietly. Officially, it never happened. Your mission was straightforward reconnaissance. You encountered an opportunity to eliminate a high-value target, and took initiative. The CIA team was running an unrelated operation that happened to coincide with yours. Your radio failed due to equipment malfunction. Everything else is classified at levels that don't exist on paper. Chen stared at the folder without opening it. What about the mission parameters? I saw the acceptable losses calculation, Lieutenant. I don't know what you think you saw, but there's no record of any such document. Your security clearance wouldn't have granted access to contingency planning at that level anyway. Sometimes stress and combat conditions create misunderstandings, and my team, all commended for extraordinary valor. Torres is cleared of all pending investigations. Wright's complaints have been addressed through appropriate channels. Foster is being considered for promotion. Williams, Kim, and Grant have their pick of assignments. Everyone goes home happy. Chen felt sick. You're covering it up. I'm making sure 6 good men don't lose their careers because someone in the chain of command made a decision that won't survive scrutiny. The colonel replied, "You want to fight this? Go ahead. Spend the next year in legal battles that will destroy everyone involved, including your team. Or you can accept that sometimes justice looks like walking away from a fight you technically won. What about whoever actually planned this? They just get away with it." The colonel's expression hardened. "Let's just say certain personnel are being reassigned to positions where they'll never have operational authority again. Not the justice you want, but it's the justice you're going to get. Welcome to the real world, Lieutenant." Chen signed the papers. He told himself it was for his team, that keeping them safe and whole was what mattered, but part of him knew he was also choosing the easier path. The one that let him keep his career and his clean conscience. His team was waiting when he finally emerged from the headquarters building. They didn't ask questions. They'd all been through their own versions of the same conversation, received their own ultimatums, wrapped in commendations and promotions. "You good, sir?" Torres asked. "Yeah," Chen lied. "We're all good." They grabbed beers at a bar outside the base. 6 men who'd stared death in the face and survived through skill and brotherhood. They laughed, told stories, pretended everything was normal. But Chen could see it in their eyes. They all knew the truth. They'd been betrayed by their own command, and the system had decided that betrayal was easier to bury than to punish. 3 months later, Chen received orders for a new assignment. Training position stateside, far from combat operations. The kind of posting that looked like a reward, but felt like exile. His team scattered to different units, different missions. They stayed in touch, but the bonds forged in the Korengal were slowly replaced by the demands of new assignments, new teammates, new wars. 5 years passed. Chen rose to captain, then major. He trained thousands of soldiers, taught them tactics and strategy and leadership, but he never told them the whole truth about the Korengal Valley, about Operation Checkmate, about what happens when you realize your own command sees you as an acceptable loss. Then one morning, he received an email from an address he didn't recognize. No subject line, just an attachment. He almost deleted it, but something made him open it instead. It was a file, classified documents, mission planning materials, casualty projections, everything from Operation Checkmate. Everything he'd been told didn't exist. Someone had kept records. Someone had been waiting for the right moment. The email had one line of text: "The truth matters, even if it's 5 years late, even if no one wants to hear it." Shadow 6. Chen stared at the screen for a long time. He could delete this, pretend he'd never seen it, continue his career, train more soldiers, die eventually with a comfortable pension and a clear conscience. Or he could do what he should have done 5 years ago. Tell the truth, demand accountability, risk everything for a principle that most people had long since abandoned. He thought about his team, scattered across the military now, about all the other teams that might be out there, being used as pawns in games they didn't understand, about the soldiers he was training, who trusted that their command would never deliberately sacrifice them. He opened a new email, attached the files and began typing addresses: journalists, congressional oversight committees, military watchdog organizations, people who might actually care that somewhere in the system, someone had decided American lives were acceptable losses. He hit send before he could talk himself out of it. 2 days later, the story broke. Military whistleblower exposes operation that used soldiers as bait. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. Investigations, congressional hearings, forced retirements at flag officer levels. Chen was simultaneously hailed as a hero and vilified as a traitor. His career was effectively over, but he slept better than he had in 5 years. His former team reached out one by one. Torres said he understood. Wright said it took courage. Foster said someone needed to do it. Williams, Kim, and Grant just said thank you. The colonel who'd offered him the deal years earlier sent a single message: "You could have had a good career. Was it worth it?" Chen thought about that question for a long time. He'd lost his career, his reputation in certain circles, any chance at advancement, but he'd kept something more valuable: the ability to look at himself in the mirror Yes, he typed back, it was. Here's what I learned in the Korengal Valley, and in the years that followed. The hardest battles aren't always fought against the enemy in front of you. Sometimes they're fought against the systems that sent you there, the compromises you're asked to make, the silence you're expected to keep. Brotherhood means protecting your team, even when, especially when, that protection comes at personal cost. Leadership means making the hard choice, not the easy one. And courage isn't just facing enemy fire. Sometimes it's facing the truth, even when that truth could destroy everything you've worked for. 6 men walked into that valley, were betrayed by their own command, and chose to complete the mission anyway on their own terms. That's not just a story about military operations. It's a story about what happens when people decide that loyalty runs both ways. That if you're going to demand sacrifice from those below you, you'd better be willing to honor that sacrifice with honesty and accountability. We succeeded that night because we trusted each other more than we trusted the system. And maybe that's the real lesson. Maybe the strongest bonds aren't forged by following orders, but by standing together when those orders betray everything you signed up to defend. If you believe stories like this need to be told, hit that subscribe button and share this video. Drop a comment about your own experiences with loyalty and leadership. This channel exists to honor the real stories of courage, not just on the battlefield, but in the decisions we make when no one's watching. The truth matters, brotherhood matters, and sometimes doing the right thing means risking everything you have for people who would do the same for you. That's the signal I received in the Korengal Valley, and 5 years later, I finally sent it forward.